What's going on, everybody? TG here. Hope everyone's hanging in there and hanging together on another rough day in the market. All the indices down pretty big, but mainly the NASDAQ, which was down over 3.5% today. Big sell-offs more as the yield bond comes in at about 1.5%. And people are a little worried about that, and they see the bond yield increasing, and they sell the growth stocks and tech, but eventually everything ended up getting sold off pretty hard. But I want to talk to you guys about Airbnb today because Airbnb just reported earnings for the first time as a public company, and it was a decent quarter with all things considered. They did report a big loss of about 3.9 billion. The company did, however, beat expectations for revenue. They reported 859 million versus 748, so that's a pretty significant beat. But the loss is obviously a huge issue, especially since the fact that they only lost about 352 million a year ago. So, obviously it's a hard time for companies like this, especially travel companies. And for the stock to drop on this news is, expected. It's an expected drop, and I think it's pretty justified considering the fact that if you look at Airbnb, it's still up a whopping 171% in the past 3 months since it IPO'd. So it's obviously up a lot. The question is it worth buying now for a company that, has a giant market cap of over 120 billion? And I personally was against Airbnb at first. I really did not like it, just because of pure fundamentals and valuations. But I think long term, Airbnb is going to be the future. I mean, they're competing against the hotel industry right now. Hilton Hotels, which is about a 34 billion market, and then Marriott, which I think is the biggest at about a 49 billion dollar market cap. These stocks are all at all-time highs right now. Obviously, according yesterday, all these ones are hitting all-time highs. And I think because of the traveling reopening phase is, bringing a lot of optimism to a lot of these companies. And I think Airbnb is going to profit the most from this. I mean, people are going to want to travel, but when they want to travel, I think they're going to want to do it in a safe way. And I think that Airbnb is the way to do it. You rent out a house, you're just by yourself. You don't have a bunch of random people in rooms next to you and all that stuff. So I think Airbnb long term, their business model is solid. It's one of the best business models we've seen in the last couple of years, innovationally speaking. And I think it's going to definitely disrupt the way the hotel industry does things. It's the whole place of hosts hosting their own houses. Leaves the runway for Airbnb set, and I think that's huge. It's going to end them up with a lot of profit one day when this all turns around, because it will turn around very soon when the vaccine comes out and all that. And I think we've seen that a lot, especially with like the airline stocks. You look at things like American Airlines. Thing has been absolutely on a tear, even in the past just a couple months. I mean, this thing, I remember in October, this thing is down at $11, and now it's all the way up 95%. It's almost doubled since then. So you look at these, it's definitely a reopening play, but it's also a growth company, in my opinion. And I bet you can play them both ways. So I'm going to be interested to see how everything works out. But I think Airbnb is solid. These hotel industries, I mean, they're going to be really good for the reopening, but long term, I don't know how they can compete against something like this. So it's going to be definitely interesting to see, and keep your eyes peeled on Airbnb, because the way they're set up, the way their business model works is truly revolutionizing, and it's in every single country as well. And I think having the ability to not have to own giant hotels and real estate and rental properties, their overhead is so much smaller than some of these companies. Some of these companies like Hilton that have giant overhead, lose significant amounts of money when things don't work out well for them. But the great thing about Airbnb is they don't have that. So yes, they take a big loss now. Yes, they're a growing company, and eventually they're going to become profitable. And when they do, it's going to spiral huge, because it's a very tech-oriented company. With not a lot of big real estate or rental properties that they upkeep and stuff. It's in the hands of the individuals who rent those hosts who rent the properties out. And I think that they are willing and going to see a big uptick in rentals and vacations, especially when this whole pandemic thing is over and people want to get out. People want to travel. People have a lot of money saved up. Unless you're me and you put it all on Amazon, they have a lot of money saved up and they want to go travel. They have been stuck in their houses, stuck in quarantine. They want to see the world. Some people still don't feel safe in a hotel atmosphere. But with Airbnb, you get your own house. You get your own land, and it's really nice. It's a brilliant idea. And I think one of the reasons they did take a big loss this quarter was the whole IPO thing. A lot of costs that involve with setting up the IPO from the initial public offering. But I mean, revenue's up big, a lot more than expected. 859 million. They were only expecting 748. So that's over 100 million beat right there. But yeah, I mean, obviously everything's going to be down a lot. All these are going to be down big year over year. Because I mean, it's a pandemic. So what do you expect? But like I said, I'm a little concerned with their valuation. I know it's forward looking, but 120 valuation is a little much for me. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a little bit much for me. But I still think this is a solid buy. Long-term speaking, I know a lot of people that are invested in this. I know people that are actually in the pre-IPO and they're still holding their shares. They think it's going to be a $400, $500 stock in the next 3 years. So, if you want to take that risk, definitely get into it. I think it's the future. I don't know if we see a pullback, 150s, but if we do, definitely going to jump in on that. But unfortunately, my money's tied up and I'm in a bad position right now. But we'll see how this thing plays out. But I'm going to be interested to see how this thing stacks up against the hotels. My prediction is that it overtakes the hotels. Growth-wise, I think it overperforms, and the hotels are going to underperform. I mean, they're hitting all-time highs right now. In a pandemic, I think that's a little far-fetched if you ask me. So yeah, we'll have to see how everything works out and how everything goes. But I mean, it's going to be an interesting drop. And, the hotels have obviously had a tremendous recovery, over 120% from their lows in March. Now, if you're a little bit hesitant on getting into Airbnb and you don't want to buy the stock upright, probably the option strategy that I would prefer is something long-term. So I would personally do this. This is probably the option strategy I'm going to do once I get my money over to E-Trade and have a lot more leverage. I'll probably go out here and sell a long-term put very far out, like June of 2022, something very safe, and get paid a good amount. Put it at like 150 strike price, something pretty safe, and get paid $3,500 to risk 150. Or you could always do a put credit spread as well. You sell this put and then buy the 140, and you risk $1,000 and you make 450. So 45% return on investment, pretty solid. Your break-even price is $114 a share, something like that. So, or in this case, I mean about $140 a share, my bad. But yeah, you just play it safe like that and make some good premium off that. Like I said, that's a great option strategy. If you do long term, I mean, if you do short term, you can get absolutely screwed over like I did with these credit spreads that are a couple weeks out and look like they're going to be taking some max losses on that. So, it's the way it is, and hopefully you guys can profit from it. But I think Airbnb is a solid long-term company, and I'd definitely put it in your portfolios. So have a wonderful day, guys. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.